Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Happiness Journey with Dr. Dan podcast, where every journey is worth living. My name is Dr. Dan, and I'm your host for today's episode. I'm a bilingual neurolinguistic programming and cognitive behavior psychotherapist specializing in anger management issues, both court-appointed and private, marriage counseling using the EFT method, dissociative disorders, narcissistic personality disorders, depression, anxiety, dream analysis, and also provide life, business, and retirement coaching support. I provide individual one-on-one session in both French or English, and also do group settings. If you need any assistance, reach out to DMV Therapy and Coaching Services at 301-325-1550, and our website can be found at lifecoachdanamzalai.com. Today, I'm very excited to have for our 8th episode of season 17, a very special guest and author and meditation guide, Alessandra Veronesi. And just like every of my past episode, I will leave it up to the guests to properly introduce themselves, as no one can do a better job. Alessandra, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Dr. Dan. So nice to be here. So I'm an author. As of 3 months ago, I published a book. It's called A New Banana, Unpeel Yourself and Elevate Your Relationships. And I'm also a meditation guide. So I'll go into it a little bit later, but I'm starting some other projects that are related to helping people find the light within themselves so that they can trigger like a self-healing movement, which is exactly what happened to me. And then going into a little bit of my background, I worked in corporate finance, software, and wealth management and insurance for about 15 years in New York and Europe. And I think that about sums it up. Now I live in Milan, but I lived most of my life in New York.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for being here today. So I'm going to ask you, like a lot of ambitious authors out there, what brought you to write the book A New Banana, and why this title?
So the book, I understand the feeling of being a person who wants to write a book very well, because as an undercover writer all my life, I frequently would revisit this idea. And so I would begin writing once in a while, but really this book came through me, and I did not have to try or ask for it. It's basically just kind of went through me. And so I can also go into that. It was during COVID. I was having a very, very, looking back, a very intense transformation and shift within, where I started to realize all of the places that were needing to be healed within me, because I was seeking validation from the external world rather than finding fulfillment within. And this got triggered through meditation. And meditation helped me very much to unblock and unlock these knowledges. And so as I was healing and feeling and clearing many, many things that were coming up for years of, in a way, living in an illusion in the past, the words for the book came out in the form of other meditations, which I then took and put into a book. So I wrote about 72 meditations at the end of my first phase of, awakenedness. And thereon after, my whole life changed. And the title, A New Banana, is really meant to, I think it's important to go full circle and to realize that it's okay that, we don't need to take everything so seriously if we can, take a higher view. And a new banana, and unpeel yourself, is in reference to the fact that maybe well-intentioned people that raised us and our surroundings and social cultural norms that we use to make decisions about our future sometimes are not fully resonant with who we are inside. Mm-hmm. And so it isn't until we unlearn a lot of the things that we learned that we can then get to that core sense of what we are. And if things fall down, it probably means it wasn't a very steady foundation. So whatever remains on that foundation is a really beautiful place to grow and build from. And so that's sort of how how this all wrapped itself up.
So do you think also a form of an inner metaphor of this book is people live their life inside a shell, and when you open the shell, which is the banana peel, you basically allow yourself to be vulnerable to the world, but then again you may become a victim of those who want you harm. So doesn't that kind of open two doors at the same time?
Uh, so I think we can certainly use shell, we can certainly use onion, we can use matryoshka, we can do, there's anything like that for sure works. Um, it depends. It depends because vulnerability, making ourselves vulnerable is a form of strength when done properly, when we're not putting on someone else
Mhm.
the weight of holding that information. So if I'm getting vulnerable because I'm being honest, so vulnerability is honesty, but like on steroids in a way.
Mhm.
And so if I'm being vulnerable with another person, it's one thing to say that certain thing because it's true to us, and we're sharing that because it's meant to help in some way clear the air about who we are and what circumstances taking place. It's another thing to share something in vulnerability, in quotations, because in essence, I don't feel like this is fully the definition, but put weight on that person to help us solve something. When we do that, then we're giving away our power. And then we're giving them the keys to the house and basically saying, like, redecorate. I
Mhm.
don't, like, so so I think in its truest form, and I have an example in my book about the difference between honesty and vulnerability. And it's a little bit spicy, but it's quick. It's like, if you're honest, being honest is like, if someone asks you about like a intimate moment you had together, honest is saying, well, it wasn't that good. That's honest.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know, like maybe next time. But vulnerability is saying, you know, I was really nervous. I was putting too much expectation into this moment. We had a lot building up to it. We have such a good connection. I don't think, I think this is why it didn't work so well for me. So this is how, and so you're sharing something about yourself, giving them the information, and now they're no longer feeling, so, and then the wrong way to do it would be, you made me really nervous and da 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 da. And then the person is like, okay, well, now I have some, then if that person has like their own set of stuff and they could be a manipulative personality, then they might be like, okay, well, look at how easily this person gets nervous. Now I can capitalize. Now I can, but it's, if we go down that rabbit hole, then we attract that kind of rabbit hole. So
That is so true. Yes, I guess it's just a question of do people now, especially with social media, Alessandra, people hide behind a computer. So it appears to me in our society nowadays, people are going back and hiding inside their shell because they're too afraid or maybe too embarrassed of who they are as a person. So this vulnerability that you're talking about versus the truth, what is preferable now? Do you feel that people don't want to hurt other people's feeling, so they refrain from telling the truth, yet being vulnerable shows a sign of weakness, so people will not want to be able to show that sign? So it's kind of going back inside a matrix and hiding behind it.
mm, yeah, so this reminds me a lot of maybe, so I don't know if, so I had those same symptoms prior to kind of freeing myself through essentially finding self-love and understanding what it means to be self-connected, and going from that direction. And I think it comes down to when you feel free within, not just on the outside. Like you could be flying around the world and, enjoying lots of fancy cocktails and fiscal paradises. But if you're not able to express yourself freely, then you have your freedom within is missing. Um, and, I was leading a very corporate lifestyle for many, many years. And everybody knows we can't, it's a very interesting way to communicate with people when you're in a corporation. You have to bite your tongue a lot. There's politics, there's games people play. And so already we're living in a suppressed expression of who we are. But we do that because we get money for it, or there's some kind of a reward. When people are choosing not to come out of their shell because for whatever reason they feel like it's too dangerous, or what's going to happen if I show truly who I am, or what if it comes out badly and I seem awkward. It's easily solved with finding that connection with yourself in a way, because you start loving yourself and you start loving others who are possibly, it comes out awkward sometimes when we speak up for ourselves and we haven't done it in a while. It comes out really strange when we're suddenly sharing things that we never kept inside, but it feels really good to be able to know that who we are, who we think we are, and who people see us as are all the same.
That's true.
And so I think it's like when we're choosing between, oh my gosh, like, should I do this or should I do that? Should I be this or should I be that? It's like none of those, actually. Like, maybe just we have to rise above one level and recognize from that perspective, what is my intention for this action? And it can be for self, the intention can be, this is going to improve me as a person, or my intention behind showing myself in this way or performing this action is because I want to be of service in some way to this cause or something like that. So when we recognize that it's like nobody really cares about our ego, like to the outside world, everything is an action, an input, and and so it's really up to us to turn that into something substantial that fuels who we want to be.
That's so true. And this book that you wrote, was it right after you decided to end your career in finance, and then you wrote this book as a transition before starting your new life your new career, or in terms of the timeline?
Actually, I wrote the book. I didn't I didn't quit my career. I'm going to be right back in business soon. Okay. But from a different, I like going full circle now. So I went on this spiritual rocket ship for a couple of years. I never left my job until I finished writing. So I was actually working for a really awesome company in California the final year, and because it was different times, I was able to work in the morning and write the book like well into the early afternoon, and then log in and I didn't have much of a social life, but I also had a very important cause that was dear to me. So it wasn't until I knew that that I had real work to do at that point for the publishing of the book and sending it forward, that I then said, okay, I can't juggle two jobs any longer. And that's when I left.
And this moment of awakening, Alessandra, what did you experience from within? Did you kind of like had that light bulb moment to say, oh, this is what's happening, and you notice it with certain symptoms or triggers that occurred in your life at a specific time? Or because people like to know, when do I know that I have?
Although it's I didn't know how impactful it would be, even though it felt so, it's something big, but also now I still remember back. I don't think I've ever had such a beautiful moment, or perhaps I have. But basically, I always led a life on the outside that appeared just fine, actually, even better than fine, on my way, big career, everything was working out really well. And I had gotten used to not, that sense of a void inside, or, everybody else around me was doing the same, happy hours on the weekends and brunch, and, getting through the workday, going to Pilates, everything we try to do to support our wellness. And I didn't know how much I was suffering until everything stopped during COVID. I didn't know how much I was distracting myself from my own pain. And I had a lot of emotional challenges growing up in my own family. It was I was in therapy for 15 years, and that kind of kept me normal. I would say. I was able to like, it was like a band-aid at best. It was good to express myself 1 hour per week, but I don't think it ever dug deep enough. I know it didn't dig deep enough. So when the pandemic took place and I could no longer travel or go to another country or, make a business excuse for doing something with my evening, I was terrified and I was very ripe for receiving healing from any of these modalities. And so it happened to be meditation. In my case, a friend of mine suggested I try it. And, you can only clean your kitchen so many times. I had nothing else to do.
Yes.
And so I said, okay, let's do it. Let's give it a try. And how do I describe the moment? It was, these were all such foreign concepts to me because they were coming in for the first time, but it was like, just like this light, this infinite moment of pure light, at the same time, realization, and I almost want to say like, it was like ecstatic bliss, but like hilarious to me that how much money this was free. Like I could have gotten this for free, like all this time. And I went to therapy all these years and I freaked out when I couldn't get an appointment. And I was like all over the place. And I just sat down and did a meditation and I just went into the sun that was all over me. And I felt so good just to be in my own body and that connection that had been longing to be had for 34 years, I don't know. It just was, you'll know, like, you'll know. It was just this, and then what happens is you feel it and it gives you a confidence that comes from within. And when you have that kind of confidence, you don't care who you're not manipulating anybody anymore. You're like, I'm me, man. Like, this is it. And yeah, so if some of these things automatically adjust themselves when you change in such a way.
So people have to take drastic measures to be able to experience what you experience, because if they still stick to where they are and they're miserable and they're afraid and they fear the changes, then nothing is going to happen. So again, it depends on each and every single individual, but how much of the change they have to do today to be able to experience something magnificent in the future.
Well, everybody can do something today, which is, I'll share the advice that really helped me. That was quite simple before I reached this momentous moment in my life. And this is a very simple advice. Someone told me, and this worked on me. I was kind of a workaholic, type A personality, anxious, depressed at times type profile. And someone just said to me, just be kind to yourself. Mm-hmm. And it didn't have to be elaborate. Like, we all know that the mind, works really hard, and we shouldn't listen to the mind, and it can be overwhelming, and life is stressful. But something really simple, just be kind to yourself, can shift a lot. So, when we're alone and we're trying to make sense of our day, we're not just the voice that's talking, we're the voice that's listening. And so if the voice is continuously saying disturbing things or criticism or judgments, that has such a big impact on our well-being. And another quick thing that everybody can do is there's something called the Ho'oponopono, which is I'm sure I'm seeing you nodding. Yeah. So it's a very powerful prayer in a way that one can say to themselves in the mirror, where it's basically like, thank you, I'm sorry, I love you, and I forgive you. And that can really, really be healing. And, those are some words that feel really good to hear from ourselves, just to kickstart. Mm-hmm. But like you said, it has to be, the person also has to want to change. It doesn't have the same effect until they do. And sometimes right before they're ready to is when people are most resistant, because they are good people and they know that it's going to be work either way. So until it becomes so difficult to hold it back any longer, people will tend to go with the familiar discomfort that at the very least, they know how to soothe and how to numb it.
So now, what would you say? I mean, when it comes to your own personal experience, Alessandra, where do you see yourself after now that you have this awakening moment? Is there something that you're gonna go back, like you said, back to your job? But when it comes to meditation, when it comes to writing another book, is there gonna be a sequel to A New Banana? And now it's become an old
Sure.
banana.
Yeah, well, top of the mountain is the bottom of the next.
Yes.
So life goes on just with a different perspective, and which changes, like, I mean, I can't even tell you, for anybody writing a book, it's like you'll be rewriting, like you have to stop yourself from rewriting because we continue to grow. And so I'm actually starting a business right now, which is basically a series of quick pep talks, which are guided meditations, 10 minutes, which have they actually have a structure that I am patenting.
Okay.